What's up, everybody? So raise your hand if you know what you want to be when you grow up. Like a really good idea, like you're confident and you know what you want to be. All right, so we have 3 people who don't know what they want to be when they grow up. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I'm about to offer a possible career path that's gonna seem intimidating at first, but just bear with me. All right, so when I grow up, I want to be an aerospace engineer, aka a rocket scientist. And believe me, I know it sounds like super boring and difficult, but I think this job is much more reasonable than people think it is. You see, rocket science has been bashed in the past century due to the phrase, "It's not rocket science." But what makes rocket science so difficult that they made a phrase after it? I mean, like they made an entire saying just for one career. It must be like the hardest thing ever, right? Well, one answer is that people think aerospace engineering is consumed with ridiculous math like this because that's how it's been depicted in movies and TV shows like the movie Hidden Figures. And since math isn't everybody's strong suit, they just assume that the job is way too difficult for them. Another reason is the fact that they have insanely complex diagrams like this, that even when I got into aerospace engineering, I would look at this and be like, huh? Okay, like, what even is that? Well, I'm here to tell you that rocket science isn't as difficult as it may seem. In fact, I'm about to teach you the basis of rocket science, and I'm positive you guys won't be overwhelmed with any complex calculations or any difficult diagrams. Yes, John Cena, I'm sure about that. Okay, so many of you have probably heard of orbit before, but I'm going to show you what that really means. When a rocket goes up, it doesn't suddenly enter like some zero gravity area. It actually, if you shot a rocket straight up, it would come straight back down. So what you need to do is shoot it up really fast and then get it going around the Earth really fast like this. And it'll actually go so fast that it goes around the Earth at the same rate that the Earth curves away from it. So it's like falling and the Earth is curving away, so it never hits the ground. So this is called orbit. And like I mentioned, you have to go really fast. In fact, this is the International Space Station, and it's going right now 17,130 miles an hour. It orbits the Earth every 90 minutes, so one day for it is 90 minutes long. To bring a big, heavy rocket to these insane speeds, we need fuel. And so every single rocket has some sort of fuel and an oxidizer. And these are stored in separate tanks. And if you just shot these 2 propellants out the back of the rocket, it would not go fast. So what you need to do is get a rocket engine. Their job is to take the oxygen and the fuel and mix them in the combustion chamber. In the combustion chamber is where there's like a controlled explosion that is then shot out the back. And they control this explosion with these pumps here that pump a certain amount of fuel and oxidizer into the combustion chamber. And once it's shot out the bottom, this is called thrust. And the thrust is what enables the rocket to reach the insanely high speeds required for orbit. Now there's a lot of essential things that go into rocket designs that I didn't mention, but that's because they are figured out along the way. Rocket engineers simply start with this idea of thrust and orbit, and then they test, fail, and repeat until they have a design that works for what they need. Those designs they end up with are what are represented in those complex diagrams I showed you earlier. They are not meant to be any sort of guide that people are supposed to fully understand, and instead they are blueprints that show the design that works best for their rocket. Developing these complex designs is the fun part, because a rocket scientist doesn't just sit at a desk and crunch numbers all day. It means that they build huge rockets and test and explode them until they find a design that works for them. Next thing you know, after doing all this testing, you've developed some 20-story tower that's going to go faster than you could ever imagine in space. Also, the future of experimenting with rockets is only becoming cooler. There's now wind tunnels and other cool resources to test things that you could build one day. I mean, look at this stuff and just imagine what the equipment in the aerospace industry will have in 20 years. I know it's a hard decision to make to become an aerospace engineer right now, but luckily you don't have to decide right this second. In fact, according to NASA, there are nearly 100 different college majors that you could choose, which many of us have already chosen, and you could still become an aerospace engineer one day. So maybe you're not convinced that this is like the right career choice for you, and maybe you just want to do something else. But now I'm going to tell you about the importance of the aerospace industry. And we all use our cell phones every day to communicate, right? So what would happen if we didn't have the aerospace industry? Well, that wouldn't work. You need to put the satellites up with the rockets first. So that's the first importance, is phones. And next is a much larger importance, which is the future. Earth is slowly dying due to climate change and pollution that we humans have caused, and every day more and more species are going extinct. If humanity could leave this beautiful planet for more space for nature, we could save this world and create more for our species to live on, and you could be a part of that. Just become an aerospace engineer. Thank you. That's it.